Alright, let's get into it. So the most complicated part of a tulip sleeve starts up here, so we'll just get rid of all the others. That's better. So tulip sleeve basically has one petal of the tulip there, and the other petal of the tulip there. So you kind of take both of those shapes off of your regular sleeve and make them into their own separate shapes. So this becomes something like these two shapes. Next up, you sew them together at the underarm, which is here and here. Those two pieces get sewn together. And then this area where they overlap up at the top of the sleeve, you basically sew that to that, and then you sew it into your shirt like normal. Now, for those fancy wizard sleeves that basically droop a lot from the wrist, it's drooping from the wrist. Here's the wrist on your sleeve pattern. You gotta make that really, really big, and then kind of go from out here and make it meet into the rest of the sleeve. Do that on both sides, and what you'll essentially get is an underarm seam that is a very weird shape. You sew those together, there's your underarm seam, and it's down there because it's a wizard sleeve. The longer you make this part, the droopier your wizard sleeve will be. Okay, now the way flutter sleeves work, this is a new concept that we're getting into. You do have to make them go out at the underarms, and oftentimes that means you have to make it curved so that the sleeve is the same length the entire way, but you also have to get into slashing and spreading. And the way slashing and spreading works is basically we cut this pattern here, and then we kind of rotate this part out so that the new line is somewhere around here. So then that adds a lot of extra space in here. So now this is the shape that we'll have. We do the same thing to the other side. Again, taking that piece and moving it out like that. And then we just connect the two pieces in the area that we had slashed them apart. So now our sleeve piece looks a little bit like this. We might want to clean up that top curve a little bit to be a bit more like that. And now, this is still your underarms. You're still sewing those two together. This is still your sleeve head. You're still sewing that to the armhole. But there's now a lot more room down here at the bottom. A lot of extra fabric gives you that little flutter. Leg of mutton sleeves, basically, everything below the line stays the same. Everything on top of the line has to get bigger. You're going to chop along this line, chop along this line, and this is going to stay intact because that's where we're going to rotate from. So now that piece is out here. Do the same thing to the other side, and then you just kind of connect them, like that, and then basically you have a giant sleeve cap that you have to gather down into your armhole, and that's what creates all that giant poof up at your shoulder. Also, I have enough followers on here, so I got monetized. And I have a Ko-fi account if you want to support these videos.